famous Hollywood celebrities and people who passed away in the United States in 1969. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. This is the second episode. Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was born in October 1890 and he died in March 1969. His age was 78 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was congestive heart failure. Dwight D. Eisenhower was the 34th President of the United States, serving from 1953 to 1961. During the Second World War, he was Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe and achieved the 5-star rank as General of the Army. Eisenhower planned and supervised two of the most consequential military campaigns of the Second World War, Operation Torch in the North Africa Campaign in 1942 and 1943, and the invasion of Normandy in 1944. Between the wars, he served in staff positions in the United States and the Philippines, reaching the rank of Brigadier General shortly before the entry of the United States into the Second World War in 1941. After further promotion, Eisenhower oversaw the Allied invasions of North Africa and Sicily before supervising the invasion of France and Germany. After the war ended in Europe, he served as military governor of the American-occupied zone of Germany in 1945, Army Chief of Staff from 1945 to 1948, President of Columbia University from 1948 to 1953, and as the first Supreme Commander of NATO from 1951 to 1952. Barbara Bates. She was born in August 1925 and she died in March 1969. Her age was 43 at the time of her death and she took her own life. Barbara Bates was an actress best known for her role in All About Eve and various 1950s films, later struggling with mental health issues leading to her tragic death. She was best known for her portrayal of Phoebe in the 1950 drama film All About Eve and as Katie Morgan on It's a Great Life. In September 1944, 19-year-old Bates signed a contract with Universal Pictures after Cecil Cohn introduced her to producer Walter Wanger. Soon after, she was cast as one of the 7 Salome girls in the 1945 drama Salome, where she danced, starring Yvonne De Carlo. In 1949, Bates's contract with Warner Brothers was terminated when she refused to go to New York to promote The Inspector General. Despite being fired by Warner Brothers, she signed a contract with 20th Century Fox later that year. After her appearance in All About Eve, Bates co-starred in Cheaper by the Dozen and its sequel, Bellies on Their Toes, with Jean Grey and Myrna Loy. In 1951, she landed a role opposite MacDonald Carey and Claudette Colbert in the comedy Let's Make It Legal. Richard Crane. He was born in June 1918 and he died in March 1969. His age was 50 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Richard Crane was a character actor whose career spanned 3 decades in films and television. His early career included many uncredited performances in feature films made in the 1940s. In 1949 and 1950, he portrayed Lieutenant Cummings in Mysteries of Chinatown, a crime drama on ABC television. Crane also appeared in the outer space adventure serial Commando Cody, Sky Marshal of the Universe in 1953. As Dick Preston, Cody's semi-comical sidekick, and was the hero of the 1951 serial based loosely on Jules Verne's Mysterious Island. Crane portrayed Gene Pelham in the crime drama Surfside 6 on ABC. He later made numerous appearances in many popular TV shows, Crane acted on stage with Les Pounds feature performing in Command Decision in 1949 and Light Up the Sky in 1950. In 1958 and 1959, he made 2 guest appearances on Perry Mason as George Moore in The Case of the Lonely Heiress and Dr. Douglas Keane in The Case of the Caretaker's Cat. Harley Earl. He was born in November 1893 and he died in April 1969. His age was 75 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke. Harley Earl was an American automotive designer and business executive. He was the initial designated head of design at General Motors, later becoming vice president, the first top executive ever appointed in design of a major corporation in American history. He was an industrial designer and a pioneer of transportation design. A coach builder by trade, Earl pioneered the use of free-form sketching and hand-sculpted clay models as automotive design techniques. He subsequently introduced the concept car as both a tool of the design process and a clever marketing device. Earl's Buick White Job was the first concept car. He started Project Opal, which eventually became the Chevrolet Corvette, and he authorized the introduction of the tail fin to the automotive styling. During the Second World War, he was an active contributor to the Allies' research and development program in advancing the effectiveness of camouflage. Charles Brackett. He was born in November 1892 and he died in March 1969. His age was 76 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an American screenwriter and film producer. He collaborated with Billy Wilder on 16 films. He joined the Allied Expeditionary Force during the First World War and was awarded the French Medal of Honor. He was a frequent contributor to the Saturday Evening Post, Collier's, and Vanity Fair, and a drama critic for The New Yorker. He also wrote 5 novels. He either wrote or produced over 40 films. Beginning in August 1936, Brackett worked with Billy Wilder, writing the film classics The Lost Weekend and Sunset Boulevard, both of which won Academy Awards for their respective screenplays. Brackett described their collaboration process as follows. The thinking to do was suggest an idea, have it torn and despised. In a few days, it would be apt to turn up, slightly changed, as Wilder's idea. Once I got adjusted to that way of working, our lives were simpler. His partnership with Wilder ended in 1950 and Brackett went to work at 20th Century Fox as a screenwriter and producer. His script for Titanic in 1953 won him another Academy Award. Vito Genovese. He was born in November 1897 and he died in February 1969. His age was 71 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Vito Genovese was an Italian-born American mafioso and the leader of the Genovese crime family in New York City, a childhood friend and criminal associate of Lucky Luciano. Genovese took part in the Castellamarese War and helped Luciano shape the mafia's rise as a major force in organized crime in the United States. He would later lead Luciano's crime family, which was renamed by the FBI after Genovese in 1957. Along with Luciano, Genovese facilitated the expansion of the heroin trade to an international level. He fled to Italy in 1937 and for a brief period during the Second World War, he supported Benito Mussolini's fascist regime for fear of being deported back to the United States to face murder charges. After returning to the United States in 1945, Genovese served as mentor to Vincent the Chin Gigante, the future boss of the Genovese family. In 1957, Genovese vied for the title of Boss of the Bosses by ordering the murder of Albert, Anastasia, and the botched hit of Frank Costello. P. W. Russell. He was born in March 1906 and he died in February 1969. His age was 62 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was pneumonia. P. W. Russell was an American jazz musician. Early in his career, he played clarinet and saxophones, but he eventually focused solely on clarinet. With a highly individualistic and spontaneous clarinet style that defied classification, Russell began his career playing traditional jazz, but throughout his career incorporated elements of newer developments such as swing, bebop, and free jazz. Writing in 1961, the poet Philip Larkin commented, "No one familiar with the characteristic excitement of his solos, their lurid, snuffling, asthmatic voicelessness, notes lead until they split, and sudden passionate intensities could deny the uniqueness of his contribution to jazz. From his earliest career, Russell's style was distinctive. The notes he played were somewhat unorthodox when compared to his contemporaries, and he was sometimes accused of playing out of tune. Paul Barbarin. He was born in May 1899 and he died in February 1969. His age was 69 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Paul Barbarin was a legendary New Orleans jazz drummer and composer who played with some of the biggest names in jazz and helped shape the genre's rhythm section. Barbarin grew up in New Orleans in a family of musicians, including his father, 3 of his brothers, and his nephew. He was a member of the Silver Leaf Orchestra and the Young Olympia Band. He moved to Chicago in 1917 and worked with the Freddie Keepard and Jimmy Noon. From 1925 to 1927, he was a member of King Oliver's band. During the following year, he moved to New York City and played in Louis Russell's band for about 4 years. He left Russell and worked as a freelance musician, but he returned to Russell's band when it supported Louis Armstrong. For a brief time beginning in 1942, he worked for Red Allen's Sextet with Sidney Bechet in 1944 and Art Roots in 1953. In 1955, he founded the Onward Brass Band. In New Orleans, he spent the rest of his life as the leader of that band. Fred Alexander. He was born in August 1880 and he died in March 1969. His age was 88 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Fred Alexander was a pioneering American tennis player who won multiple Grand Slam doubles titles and contributed to the early development of competitive tennis. He won the singles title in the 1908 Australian Championships and 6 double titles at Grand Slam events. In 1908, Alexander became the first foreigner to win the singles title at the Australian Championships, the amateur precursor to the Australian Open. He then teamed with Alfred Dunlop, the man he defeated in the final. To win the doubles, Alexander attended Princeton University and won the Intercollegiate Double Championship in 1900 and the singles in 1901. Between 1904 and 1918, he was a United States top 10 player 6 times. He was a finalist in doubles at the United States Championships, a precursor to the US Open 7 straight times, beginning in 1905. He and partner Harold Haggard won the United States doubles each year from 1907 to 1910. At age 37, Alexander won again in 1917, partnering with Harold Throckmorton. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.